Tracy Whitehead, who was under police protection, says it was 2 days before she even knew that Palczynski had taken her family hostage.
Among the victims in this case, the people who were trapped in their homes and those who were not allowed to return to their homes. For those people, this is the first full night that they've been allowed back inside their houses in 5 days.
For them to just allow me to talk to Tracy, and I will surrender peacefully. I won't kill anybody else. I won't hurt anybody else. You know, I did not mean to do any of this.
In March of 2000, the Dundalk neighborhood of Baltimore, Maryland, was terrorized by a series of spree murders, which quickly turned into a manhunt in an attempt to stop the mayhem, ultimately ending in one of the United States' longest one-man standoffs and hostage situations. This is the case of Joseph C. Palczynski, a mass spree killer whose crimes have essentially been forgotten about to time, and one of many people who was seemingly wronged by America's mental health care system. Not only is this case tragic for everyone involved, but it's also a sad reminder of just how bad this crisis is, even to this day. Hey guys, and happy Pride. I know this video is going up towards the end of the month of Pride Month, and maybe even after Pride is over, but does not mean your Pride has to end. Anyways, welcome to my channel, where we talk about all things true crime, crazy and unknown historical events, ghost phenomena, and more. And I also travel to some of the locations that I talk about, so if any of that is of interest to you, then definitely consider hitting the subscribe button, because that is all we discuss here. And also don't forget to turn on post notifications so you don't miss any of my new adventures or upcoming cases. Also, be sure to check out the description for a link to my shop. Right now I have a few cute pride pins and other things. This site is only temporary while I figure out another option, but till then you can follow the link down in the description and check it out. Today's case was actually suggested to me in a comment on one of my recent videos. And in the comment, he mentioned that there was not many videos or much information in general on this case, and he was not wrong. So what little information I did find, I could not stop reading about this case, and I wanted to bring it to my channel. There was a little bit of conflicting information between the articles that I was reading, so I did my best to put everything together concisely for you. Also, just a quick side note before we dive into the case. I have gotten a few comments of cases that you guys would like me to do videos on in the past, and most of them have been added to the list of cases I want to look into. So thank you to those who have suggested those. And if there is any other cases or topics that you would like me to discuss on this channel, please leave it down in the comments, and I promise I will eventually get to them and add it to my list most likely. As always, thank you so much for your support, and let's waste no more time and dive right into the case of Joseph C. Palczynski. Joseph C. Palczynski was born on November 11th, 1968 in Baltimore, Maryland. Although it was stated that he grew up in a loving household free from abuse, Joseph's father did commit suicide when he was only 10 years old, which really devastated the entire family in many ways. In his teenage years, his good-natured tendencies seemed to change violent and unpredictable after suffering a severe head injury in a car crash. I couldn't find much about this car crash or the injury in general, but one article that I did find actually conflicted this information and said that it was a school bus accident. Unfortunately, at this time, the correlation between head trauma and mental illness was not fully understood. At first, he was diagnosed with post-traumatic psychotic episodes, and he was not given sufficient treatment. Over the next few years, however, it was becoming apparent that this was not just an episode. Joseph began to have regular angry outbursts, eventually being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Constantly, Joseph's doctors would make changes to the medicine aimed at treating his mood swings. However, it was seemingly never successful. Over the next decade, Joseph spent most of his time in and out of jail or on probation, but he continued to get more and more violent, eventually escalating to domestic violence. Many of his girlfriends later described Joseph as having a Jekyll and Hyde personality. One moment he could be screaming and yelling, and the next moment he would be showering them with gifts and expensive dates. Not only were these women terrified of his unpredictable mood swings, they also feared being physically harmed by Joseph. In 1986, at the age of 18, Joseph was dating 15-year-old Amy Gearhart, who he had met when they were both in high school. At first, their relationship seemed like a dream to Amy, but she quickly learned Joseph's true colors during their first argument when he held a knife to her throat. Another time, Amy was hanging out with some friends, and Joseph showed up unannounced and began yelling and beating her. He was even able to coerce her into staying quiet about the abuse when the police arrived. After this, however, Amy did get out of the relationship, and she pressed charges with the help of her mother. According to one article I found, Joseph's mom attempted to get these charges dropped by calling Amy's mom, but Amy and her mom stood their ground and stated that he will do it again, and maybe next time he will kill the person. Once they officially broke up, he found a new girlfriend named Kimberly, but this relationship didn't last long either. According to charging documents pressed by Kimberly's mother, Joseph beat Kimberly after he found out that she was taking birth control pills. And in another document, it stated that he beat her and threatened Kimberly after she refused to have sex with him. Whichever the case, as quickly as the relationship started, she had sought Amy out for advice, and Amy convinced her to get a restraining order. Joseph did face charges for these relationships because both Amy and Kimberly were minors. He was sentenced to 2 years in jail, but had added time to his sentence for his escape attempts. He was released in early 1991 at the age of 22. However, nothing really changed from his time spent in jail, and Joseph went right back to dating high school girls, beginning a vicious cycle of dating a girl and facing charges or jail time. In another charging document filed on November 8, 1991, mere months after being released, his then-girlfriend, 17-year-old Sharon, stated that he had pushed her against a wall, screaming and threatening her and her family, claiming that if she or they had ever sent him to jail, he would find a way to make sure that her and her family paid for it. But like clockwork, Joseph found himself in jail again. However, this time he was able to successfully escape. He resurfaced a few months later in Idaho, January of 1992, and the only reason he was able to be found in Idaho this time was because of another charge that was filed by the mother of a 15-year-old girl after he assaulted her and her brother, threatening to kill both of them. When Idaho police tried to arrest Joseph, he barricaded himself in his apartment, threatening to shoot people in the adjacent parking lot if anyone approached the apartment. 16 hours of negotiations ensued, but the standoff didn't end until finally tear gas was used to disarm and apprehend him, and he was quickly extradited back to Maryland. Infuriatingly, however, his case does not end there because his lawyers were able to plead insanity, and after receiving an evaluation, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia, declaring him legally insane, and he was able to return home. I was not able to find what sort of treatment he had to go to or what his arrangements were at all, but he was seemingly able to do whatever he wanted again. Again, just like clockwork, Joseph was dating another 17-year-old, Michaela. One day she came home with bruises all over, and Gary Osborne, her father, confronted Joseph about this, which caused an argument between the two, leaving Gary hospitalized with 4 broken ribs. On another occasion, on Christmas Eve to be exact, Joseph slammed the girl against the shower, choking her because she wanted to go spend the night with her father rather than him and his family. He screamed and threatened her like the other girls before, threatening that he could kill her and claim self-defense and get away with it. Once Gary found out about this, it was the final straw and he finally pressed charges against him. Before being sent to a detention center, Joseph came up with his next best plan yet. He began a relationship with another 17-year-old girl, Lisa Anderson, who he manipulated into pressing charges against Gary for making bomb threats and other terroristic comments over the phone. Although she did come clean very quickly because her story was not making sense and the charges against Gary were dropped. Joseph, however, was charged with battery and witness intimidation, and he was placed on probation with orders to stay away from the Osborne family. And just like clockwork in my videos, they have started yard work, so hopefully I can drown them out again like in my last videos. But I apologize. Hopefully it's far enough away or quiet enough that you can't hear it, but in the summer of 1996, now about 4 years later, Joseph set his eyes on a new target. 16-year-old Stacy Kalata. Joseph made her believe that he was a good-natured man by showering her with gifts whenever he was able to, and told her everything that she wanted to hear. He even told her that he was 20 years old, when in reality he was 29 years old at the time. According to Stacy, there was a couple red flags, such as a comment that Joseph had made to her once about how he had done some bad things in the past, but she was able to look past a lot of the warning signs because he was so polite and drove a fancy car. Soon, Stacy's parents found Joseph's rap sheet, and he was not able to hide behind his words anymore. After Stacy and her family discovered all of his dark secrets from his past, Joseph flipped right back to his violent ways and showed Stacy a whole new side of his personality. The Kalata family started to intervene into the relationship, threatening legal action, but they got lucky when Joseph received a conviction in the Osborne case due to violating his probation, and he was sent back to jail. Although this did not end their relationship, instead what finally broke the camel's back was a letter that Stacy had found where Joseph mentioned that their relationship was just a big joke and that she was just another girl under my belt. He was eventually released once again in June of 1998 and wasted no time in finding another girlfriend. This time he started dating 20-year-old Tracy Whitehead. Although, as you probably can guess, this relationship was reminiscent from his past ones, although it did last the longest out of all of the others. For 18 months, Tracy put up with Joseph's mood swings and violent tendencies, and according to friends of Tracy, it was because her life was better now than it was before meeting Joseph. She stopped missing work, and she even went drug-free for 6 months. But the relationship eventually ended in March of 2000, after she had finally had enough of the abuse. Once again, Joseph found himself arrested for the assault. However, he was released the following day on a $7,500 bond. Without hesitation, the same day he was released, Joseph convinced his neighbor to buy him a shotgun and a rifle, claiming that he needed them for target practice. But this was just the beginning of Joseph's horrific plan. On the morning of March 7th, 2000, Joseph drove to the Shanks house, a family friends of the Whiteheads, and where he knew Tracy had been staying for the past couple of days. He pleaded with George Shank to let him talk to Tracy for just a moment, but knowing how unpredictable Joseph could be, George stood his ground and kept refusing. Joseph left infuriated, only to return 2 hours later, this time entering their home through the unlocked sliding door in the back, and demanded that the Shanks give Tracy to him, and when they refused once more, he shot both George and Gloria Shank point blank, killing them instantly. Tracy tried to escape from the house, but Joseph caught her, dragging her by her hair towards his car. Tracy's screams attracted the attention of a nearby neighbor, David Myers, who tried to intervene as well, but he was also shot down.
It's horrifying. I never thought I would be in this situation. Never thought I would be in this situation. Every time I seen his face on TV, it just gave me chills. All I can remember is, I think he said, "Tracy, you're going with me." And he told Gloria to hang the phone up. And she got up off the couch and he shot her twice. And then George got up and he shot him. And the kids were screaming, and I fell to the ground. I started crawling to the door, and he was like, "Don't touch that doorknob or I'll blow your brains out right here." And he picked me up by my hair and dragged me out the door, and I was screaming for help, and he was like, "Shut up, shut up." And that's when David Myers came around. He heard me, and he shot him.
Joseph took Tracy and fled, threatening that he would kill her if she too did not cooperate with him. He took her to an abandoned camper in the middle of the woods, and Tracy tried her best to keep Joseph calm. For about 2 days, Tracy obeyed her captor in order to keep him calm. While in the woods, he attempted to propose to Tracy, stating that he knew that this was not the right time, and he also knew that there would actually never be a right time, but he claimed that his love for her was real and forced a ring onto her finger. Eventually, she was able to convince him that they needed to leave the woods for food and water. They did find a nearby house, stealing some of the water from their hose, and approached a nearby woman, Jennifer Lynn McDonnell, who was a pregnant mother and had a 1-year-old baby as well, shooting her point blank and stealing her car. only to stop again a few miles down the road at a motel. Once Joseph paid for the motel room and they got into their room, Joseph caught a glimpse of the breaking news about the murders and the subsequent manhunt, which spooked him, and once again he tried to flee the area.
We went in, he turned the TV on, he seen himself on the news. He seen that, you know, someone had died, Miss McDonald, and he looked at me and he smiled. And I put my head down and I cried. They said she was a mother. And I just shook my head. And then he was like, we gotta go, we gotta go. So we walked out, walked around, and he said, oh my God, the police are here. There's only one police car. And all of a sudden I just started running. I knew the guns were in the car. He couldn't shoot me. That was the only chance, the best chance I had.
Tracy always feared something terrible would happen if she broke up with Palczynski because he'd threatened to kill her family in the past. It was part of his plan to make her suffer if she left him.
Joseph eluded the police for 9 more days, growing more and more infuriated with how his plan was unfolding. So he began figuring out a new plan. Now, he set his rage towards who he felt caused Tracy to fall out of love with him, and that was Tracy's family. Breaking into their Dundalk home and tying up everyone inside, Tracy's mom, Lynn Whitehead, her boyfriend, Andy McCord, and his son, Bradley McCord, were all taken hostage, and for the next 4 days, Baltimore police attempted to negotiate with the unhinged Joseph. Over the course of the negotiations, Joseph pleaded to talk to Tracy, and if he was able to, he would make all of this end. But police knew that was not an option. A few days into the standoff, Joseph began shooting out of the windows of the house, hitting nearby neighbors' houses and police vehicles, which prompted them to evacuate the neighborhood to keep everyone safe. On the 4th and final day of the standoff, Joseph was tricked by his hostages, and he drank an iced tea that was laced with Xanax, which made him fall asleep. Police were alerted to this when Lynn and Andy were seen running from the house. However, 12-year-old Bradley was still in the house with the sleeping Joseph. Police entered the home and rescued Bradley, safely returning him to his dad and Lynn, while the police approached the now sleeping Joseph and shot him a total of 27 times, killing him, which prompted the neighborhood to erupt into cheers once it was announced that he was officially dead. The terror that Baltimore had endured for the past few weeks was finally over, and on the evening of March 21st, Tracy was finally reunited with her family.
Oh, they just broke the window. They just went in the house. Oh my God.
The final chapter of a 5-day hostage situation caught on tape. You are looking at exclusive video of the tactical maneuvers of police officers ending Joseph Palczynski's reign of terror. But as you know, Joseph Palczynski was not in that house alone. 12-year-old Brad McCord was sleeping in the kitchen when police came in through the window. But how could the other hostages, his parents, Lynn Whitehead and Andy McCord, leave the house without him? Vic joins us now with an explanation.
Well, Denise Eyewitness News spoke with former hostages Lynn Whitehead and Andy McCord about the very tough decision they had to make to leave their son inside with Joseph Palczynski, while the two adults made their way to the safety of police.
I call it a miracle for us, you know, for everybody in the house. I just felt fortunate. I mean, maybe God was looking over us by, you know, Lynn coming over, and Lynn, I give Lynn all the credit. She came up with a game plan.
A game plan that became the opening Lynn Whitehead and Andy McCord needed to make their spontaneous escape, leaving behind 12-year-old Bradley asleep in the kitchen. This diagram of 7520 Lang Avenue was provided by Baltimore County Police. It shows where Joseph Palczynski was asleep in the living room. 12-year-old Bradley was also asleep on the kitchen floor, within earshot of Palczynski. And just before the escape, McCord and Whitehead found themselves in a family room separated only by a hallway.
People are going to question why we left Brad in there, but there's no way I could wake him up knowing that he's going to wake up, not know what's going on, and him saying, what's going on, Dad, and wake Joby up. Because Joby, I know, would have woke up, he would have saw Lynn gone, and he would have said, Andy, where's Lynn? And I would have said, I don't know. And he probably would have shot us right there.
Palczynski's grandmother grieves the death of the innocent victims and the death of her grandson, but she believes police did what they had to do. Maria Nardone did not learn of her grandson's death till a neighbor told her early this morning. Tonight, Suzanne Collins brings you an exclusive interview with Palczynski's grandmother.
We're all hurting. We're all hurting. hurting too.
And so is those people that he killed. They're hurting just like me.
A neighbor comforted Marie Nardone through the night. Today she was very sad her grandson is dead, but she wanted to speak to the families of those murdered.
Please believe me, if any one of you are watching me, with all of my heart goes out to each and every one of you. And all of my family, we're also sorry he done all this.
Does Marie Nardone blame police for shooting her grandson?
I'm not angry at police. Why should I be? They were doing their job. And they were protecting people so he wouldn't hurt nobody else. And I'm not angry at them, but I'm just sorry it had happened to Joseph.
Joseph Palczynski was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and he had violent behavior, especially when he didn't take his medication, according to his family. Nardone asks others to seek treatment.
Do what you got to do to help yourself. I'm begging you from my heart as a grandmother who loves her grandson, and he's gone now. So please, help yourselves. Don't let it happen to you, too, that you'll be in the same sorrow that me and my family are.
Joseph Palczynski's death came as a shock to at least one person, his mother. Patricia Long learned of Joseph's fate after a call from her other son, Jimmy. Then in an exclusive phone interview with Eyewitness News, she talked about who she blames for her son's death.
And let me tell you something. That boy had a heart of gold, and I blame the system. I blame the system for letting that boy out, not giving him the proper treatment, not giving him the medicine he needed because they knew of his condition.
Patricia Long says she tried to get to Lang Street to talk to her son during the standoff, but police refused to let her go. She also says she wants the community of Dundalk to know she is sorry for what her son has done.
Joseph's mother, Pat Long, has admitted that in the years that have passed, it wasn't always easy to make it through the day. She was grief-stricken for the loss of her son and also the pain that he caused to all of the other families. A few years later, Tracy paid Pat a visit, and they were able to bring each other even more comfort with each other's support. Tracy still wears the ring that Joseph gave her to this day, but for Tracy, it stands for her strength instead of it standing for their engagement. And she vows to never let anyone treat her like that again. Pat and a few others believe that it was completely inhumane how the police handled this situation, claiming that because he was asleep, he should have been approached like he was an unarmed criminal rather than completely obliterated. In response, the Maryland State's Attorney's Office says that the officers acted legally. But at the end of the day, what failed Joseph's victims? Was it the legal system, the mental health system, or should it be pinpointed solely on Joseph himself? Most people believe that he should have been stopped and given the proper treatment years before any of this unfolded. However, there are a few people that believe the system did work how it was supposed to. After all, he went to jail, he was in and out of mental health facilities, he got counseling and treatment, albeit the wrong treatment. And because of these factors, some believe that Joseph's horrific case is only the exception rather than the rule when it comes to the mental health crisis in America. A few different lawyers have made comments over the years that there was essentially nothing legal that could have been done to stop Joseph beforehand due to the lack of 911 calls or witnesses to the abuse of his girlfriends, which both are unfortunately very common in domestic cases. Joseph's own lawyer eventually publicly stated that he believed mental illness was the cause of his behavior, commenting that Joseph had seen many professionals and providers over the years, and many of those providers disagreed over whether he needed medication and what diagnosis he had in the first place. And in that regard, I believe that is proof of the system failing him. Joseph also had a lot of enablers in his life because he was good at manipulating the situation. For instance, he was able to convince his neighbor to buy him guns right after he had been released from jail. His mother also enabled him by constantly trying to sweep the messes under the carpet, by attempting to convince the teenage girls and their families to drop the charges against her son. But how much can you blame a mother for standing by and loving her son through all of this? In the end, I don't think any singular person is the reason for this tragedy unfolding, and if anything, it stands as an example of what needs to be fixed within the mental health system. I believe this case definitely revealed a lot about our society when it comes to mental health and domestic violence. But what do you think? Let me know down in the comments if you believe all of this could have been avoided, if he wasn't failed by his doctors and the system? Or do you think all of this was unfortunately inevitable due to the lack of evidence of the domestic violence? Do you think Joseph should have been gunned down the way he was? Or do you think he should have been arrested and given a fair trial? I'm definitely interested to hear all of your opinions down in the comments below. But that is going to do it for me today. I hope I was able to relay the information of the case in a way that you were able to understand. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, during my research there was a lot of conflicting information such as dates and whatnot. Definitely check the description for the links that I used to do my research. There is a bit of information that didn't make it into this video for a number of reasons, so if you want to learn a little bit more about the case, that's a good place to start. And again, also like I stated at the beginning, if you have any case suggestions, definitely leave them down in the comments below and I'll definitely check them out. And also don't forget to check out my shop, the link is down in the description below. If you did enjoy this video and you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. I'll be talking about more true crime like in today's video, plus more topics. Lastly, don't forget to let me know that you liked the video by giving it a thumbs up. But as always, I appreciate any and all support, and I will see you in my next upload.